Hey everyone, it's Blake. Welcome into episode number 3 of our WWF 1992 save in TEW 2020. This is Superstars of Wrestling for January, week 2. We continue our road to the 1992 Royal Rumble. And before we hop in, because we got quite a few things to get to on this show, I know it's mentioned in the comments, and I always enjoy the feedback and love the discussion because, again, I play TW, have a lot of fun with it, but there are certain drawbacks, and it was certainly, we discussed it in the comments, and you guys can probably see it on the previous video, but yeah, like it is so difficult to try to book just to the era itself, especially like in this time period for the WWF, because yeah, like you look at the way Superstars of Wrestling was used, the way, of course, Primetime and Wrestling Challenge, all those different shows, like the way they used them back then. You know, we didn't have, like in this particular instance, right? You weren't getting Hogan, Flair, Taker, Savage, Jake, everybody else on the show at the same time. Like you weren't getting that every single week, but it's like, because this is how it works in TW, you have to kind of play for the rating, because if not, you're going to lose popularity, which, by the way, we're going to lose popularity on this show again for the second straight week, but we're trying to try to find some middle ground here, and I think there's an idea that I like that will at least get us moving in the right direction. It's not going to fix all the limitations. I think with TW, again, trying to book it where you just have nothing but squash matches, it's mostly mid-card guys against jobbers, and you don't have a lot of huge star presence on every single show. You know, usually have maybe one big angle, perhaps. You know, you've got some interviews, and you kind of see how we structured the first show. We're going to keep using it that manner just to try to not lose a ridiculous amount of popularity, but you know, there are just things that we're going to have to tweak along the way, knowing that there are some obvious limitations to trying to book these shows the way they were actually booked. So, again, I love the feedback because it's something that's frustrated me. I'm sure it's something that anybody else who's played like this era of mods and that kind of stuff, whether it's, you know, the 90s, the 80s, really anything before what we're used to, kind of became the Monday Night Raw model and all that, which, of course, we will introduce Raw in January of 93. And that will help a little bit because that will be something where we can start to maybe, of course, we're not going to turn it into the Attitude Era in 93, but we'll start to, you know, kind of build for the future in terms of what Raw is going to become and all that. So I just want to put that out there up front because, again, it's something that frustrates me too, but I try to keep it as close as I can, but there are just, again, we've got to have our stars on the show, and yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if there's anything we can do to sort of try to, we're never going to perfectly replicate it, but we can at least give it a shot. And like I said, I am going to introduce something after the Rumble that I think may help a little bit here in terms of giving you a little bit more of that immersion into how things were at this time period, other than just the typical Superstars of Wrestling every week. So, all right, let's start things off with a pre-show. Tatanka getting the win over Skinner. 653, the Indian Death Drop, 50 for the rating here. Tatanka will be in action next week. We'll hype that up here in just a few on the main card. But pre-show match, Tatanka with the win over Skinner. All right, another pre-show match here. The Warlord getting the win over Brian Costello on a losing streak here in our series thus far. 256, just a complete squash here. Running power slam, 41 for the rating. Not a lot to add. Again, we're just giving these guys some work. You know, I think Warlord has been on, we put him on the 2-hour prime time we booked on Monday. So, yeah, Warlord gets the win over Mr. Costello here. And now we've got a third pre-show match. This was, I figured, would be the best of the group. And that is the New Foundation, Owen Hart and Jim Neidhart getting the win over the Orient Express. They pick up the victory. Owen Hart pins Kato there with the missile dropkick. So the Orient Express come up short against the New Foundation. A nice little tag team match for the fans in attendance. Not on the actual show, but this gets a 54 for this one. And a victory for the New Foundation. All right, we get things started on the main show with a not great match. And of course it's going to bring down the crowd's enthusiasm because it features mid-card or below type stuff here. Mid-card versus, I mean, it's the Genius. We're not going to call the Genius a jobber, but he is more in his managerial role, which we'll see the Genius a little bit later on. Managerial-wise, the Beverly Brothers will be in action. So Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich gets the win, 431, the submission via the Iron Claw. So, yeah, took the crowd's initial enthusiasm out. Hey, it is what it is. Again, these first couple shows, we're going to lose popularity. I've accepted it, but we gotta lay the foundation for the stories that we're going to tell all that usual stuff. It's just, again, it's harder to do trying to replicate the style in this particular mod. So keep that in mind. I know we want to try to get the best ratings, but we're not exactly focused on that from the jump here. So 42 here for this segment. Crowd's going to be brought back up soon enough because they're going to hear from the Mountie, and that always brings the crowd to their feet. So we get the Mountie here with a sort of pre-tape promo with Gene Okerlund. This gets a 66, so pretty good stuff here from the Mountie. And as we know, Bret Hart will defend the Intercontinental Championship against the Mountie at the Royal Rumble. And this is your usual stuff here, the excellent chemistry from Jimmy Hart and the Mountie. And it's the Mountie just pushing. Bret can talk all he wants, about how he's going to lock him in the sharpshooter and he won't be able to get out, and calling him a cheater. Well, Mountie says Bret Hart's a crook. And you know what he does to people that are crooks? He puts them behind bars because he's the Mountie, and he always gets his man. So, your usual Mountie promo here. Not a lot to add, just kind of hyping up this match with Bret the Hitman Hart for the Intercontinental Championship at the Royal Rumble. So 66 here for this one. All right, another lackluster match, but it is what it is. So the Legion of Doom, our tag team champions in action, they get the win over the tag team of Barry Horowitz and Bob Bradley. What a crew. But 231, this one doesn't go long either. The Doomsday Device does it. The victory to the tag team champions who are in action, and as we'll find out shortly, know their opponents now for the Royal Rumble. They will defend the tag team championships there, and we will tell you in just a few who that's going to be against. So 46 here for this particular match. As you can see, a theme here. These match ratings are not good, but we're trying to somewhat stick to, a little, obvious jobber inclusion. It's everything, right? Like we're trying here, but you kind of see how it works with the ratings. So, all right, now we get Sean Mooney pre-tape promo here with the Texas Tornado, who was in action earlier. So, kind of playing up Mooney, talking about his win over the Genius. And this gets to 47. Not much to add here, but it is the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich, talking about his legacy and how that's going to motivate him for the Royal Rumble with a chance to be the WWF champion. That's the reason he came here in the first place. Everybody knows about his history with, his entire family. And he knows that they're all, capable of being champions, but he wants to prove that he can be the WWF champion. And that was his goal when he came here. So throughout all the twists and turns, the Texas Tornado says he will throw everybody out over the top rope and be the next champion. So Tornado, kind of babyface promo here, hyping himself up for the Royal Rumble match. All right, and another just poor match. Terrible, if you will. The British Bulldog, who we said would be in action this week, gets the win over the Brooklyn Brawler, 255 via the running power slam. Another squash here, 41 for this one. So, again, we are, this is the perfect example of, we're going to have to, pull out the WCW 1998 model here. We're going to have to start putting all of our main eventers in singles matches together and all this other stuff to get what we need out of these ratings. But it's fine. I mean, again, I'm not too concerned about it. If we lose some popularity up front, things will start to pick up. And, again, we're going to kind of evolve things a little bit in terms of how we use superstars and some other stuff that I have in mind that I mentioned earlier that we're going to introduce to the series. So it's all good. Bulldog gets the win. And, last week on Superstars, we heard the Bulldog talk about how this was going to be the year of the Bulldog and that he felt it. This was his year. So Bulldog gets the win. We know he'll be in the Rumble as well. So 41 for this one. All right, a little bit better stuff here. As, again, we've been using Roddy Piper as our scoop guy. He's Mr., the guy who's in the locker room. He's hearing all the rumors. And we kind of hear, on commentary between the matches here, Piper tells Vince, I got a big scoop this week. He said, I have it on good authority that the one and only Sid Justice has officially been cleared to return from injury and that he will be in the 30-man Royal Rumble coming up next week. So Piper revealing that Sid is back. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think Sid had an injury at this time, but we're playing it up that, again, we kind of have our own little history we're building here, that Sid was out with an injury, and now he's been cleared to return. So that's how we're playing it up, that he suffered an injury, house show, whatever you want to use with that, and he's ready to go. So Piper points out, Sid's back, and what is that going to mean for the likes of Hulk Hogan, The Undertaker, Jake the Snake Roberts, Randy Savage, Ric Flair in the Rumble What's it going to mean? Because Sid may be considered the favorite now, is what Piper's saying. So, yeah, kind of playing that up here with that. So, yeah, good stuff. With Sid officially joining the mix for the Royal Rumble, we got a pretty loaded Royal Rumble field here. So that makes things even more interesting as we head into that match. 81 for this one. All right, here comes a terrible match. It's unbelievable. The Beverly Brothers, a 39 match, get the win over Brad Anderson and Mike Moore. Yeah, hey, I pulled these guys out from the local jobber crew. These guys are not on the roster. We pulled them from the jobber squad, and yeah, so the Beverly Brothers get the win. Once again, Bo hitting the Shaker Heights spike to get the victory. I'm not recapping the gimmick changes because that has to do with both of these guys, and they are local talents, and they will not be returning unless we return to this area of the country for another show. So, yeah, Beverly Brothers get the win. We're bringing down the crowd. 39 for this one. Just horrendous match. But, I mean, they can't all be 5-star classics. So, Beverly Brothers get the win, and this is where we note on commentary that we now know our tag team championship match for the Royal Rumble. It will be the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal, defending against the Beverly Brothers, and we'll hear from both of those teams next week here on Superstars of Wrestling. So, there you go. There's your tag team match for the Rumble. The Beverly Brothers challenge the Legion of Doom. So, all right, now we get a little bit better stuff here. Up and down the crowd is for this show. I mean, that's just the way it works, right? So, all right, we get some kind of just tape promos with these guys by themselves. First, we hear from Jake the Snake Roberts. And we know last week Jake came out to the aisleway after the Macho Man defeated Repo Man in our main events here on Superstars of Wrestling. Jake came out just sort of staring and laughing at Elizabeth. That sent Savage on the chase for Jake. And, you know, just kind of got the promo here following up with that. And we know these two have had the feud running for a while, and we're kind of playing that up, that this feud just it will not end between these two because, you know, one side has to get what they want out of the other. And that's the purpose of Jake's promo here, is to Jake's, you know, saying, Savage, you know, I wish I could do Jake's gravelly voice, but I can't. Just talking about how Savage, you know, basically he knows how this works, and that Jake will stop at nothing until he gets what he wants. Elizabeth cannot hide from him, and Jake just kind of reiterating that what he wants is very clear. Miss Elizabeth, like, he's just, you know, Jake is insinuating that it's Elizabeth that he wants. So we get the creepy Jake voice, all of this other stuff here. So really laying it on thick here, and we know what Macho Man's going to think about that. So Jake just saying again that Elizabeth can't hide from him, and he points out that, Savage, you better hope that when you draw that number in the Royal Rumble, you better hope it's right next to mine, because if it's not, where is Miss Elizabeth going to be whenever I'm waiting to strike? So, Jake, that bastard, he's up to something here. So, yeah, kind of pointing out that, will Elizabeth be on her own if Savage is inside the ring in the Royal Rumble? If Jake's not yet in the Rumble, where could all parties be at that point? So then we get the response from Randy Savage here. You know, again, not necessarily responding to Jake's promo, but just kind of playing off of last week, and Savage just going off here. Like, he's pissed. We know he is, based on kind of the personal nature of this feud. And, you know, Savage just saying that he will basically do anything he has to do to, you know, destroy Jake here. And that is what he's going to do, talking about he doesn't care who he's got to throw out in the Royal Rumble. He's coming for Jake the Snake Roberts. He doesn't care about anybody else in there, and that he will basically, you know, take everything away from Jake. Savage just, you know, losing his mind here, yelling and screaming. Your usual Randy Savage promo when he's pissed off, and that's what you get here. And Savage is saying, you know, in the end, that he will throw Jake over the top, and after he wins the Royal Rumble, he will go after Jake yet again. So he's not going to let this in until he destroys Jake. So that's Savage's kind of approach here with this heated feud between the two. 82 here for this one. All right, now we get on next week's edition of Superstars of Wrestling. We know that we will have DiBiase and IRS. They're going to be in tag team action next week. Sergeant Slaughter will be in action. Tatanka, who we mentioned earlier, will also be in action. Plus, we will hear from the Big Boss Man, the natural disasters, earthquake and typhoon, and Rick Martel. They'll all address their spots in the 1992 Royal Rumble. So just packing in a lot of guys here, just to, again, kind of hype up what's to come next week on the show. And as we mentioned earlier, we'll also hear from LOD and the Beverly Brothers ahead of the tag team match for the titles at the Royal Rumble as well. So there's a little bit of your setup for next week. And if these are the only guys we have on the card next week, then yep, show's going to lose popularity again. But we're gonna try to push this thing as far as we can push it before we have no choice but to kind of change up, maybe how we do things a little bit. But we'll talk about that. Like I said, I think the thing that I'm going to introduce will make sense in terms of how we're going to try to make it work. So 65 for this rating on this segment, and let's get to the lead into our main events. And this is where we get the new picture, the new photo here, as we have Sensational Sherry coming out. And, of course, Piper played it up last week that this week on Superstars we were going to get the new Shawn Michaels after he knocked his friend Marty Jannetty into oblivion and into rehab, I guess, because, remember, Jannetty's out for a couple months because we had to send him to rehab on day 2 with a save. So we get the new Shawn Michaels here, Sherry introducing him as the sexy boy, all this. So, again, this is kind of your reset for Shawn Michaels. We just wanted to put it here on television, kind of give it a little bit more effect. So Sherry now managing Shawn Michaels, and this is how we're going to go forward, which you guys kind of knew this was the direction we were going, but we wanted to put it here just as a segment to make it a little bit more important, because it is important for Shawn Michaels moving forward. So 63 here for this one, and that's going to lead us into our main events. And yeah, anytime you got a 61 for your main event, you're not doing great, but hey, once again, I don't have to keep repeating myself. Shawn Michaels gets the win over Greg the Hammer Valentine. So 743. It's kind of an interesting matchup now you think about it. I mean, these are two good workers, kind of obviously different spots in their career, but still, Michaels getting the win over Greg the Hammer here. The Sweet Chin music does it. So good match between these two. Obviously the best thing on the show. That's why we put it in the main event slot, because we didn't have any of our other kind of top-tier main event guys working this one. And we're trying not to have that many competitive matches, but that will probably have no choice but to change at some point. So 61 here for the rating. Now, we get a 100 here for this one. It's not even the final segment. So we get a video package here after the main events, and it's looking at highlights from a recent match involving Hulk Hogan. And Vince is bringing up that a recent show in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Hulkster was in action. And what happened? Hulk Hogan got the win, but also came with it some interference from The Undertaker. The Undertaker trying to get involved in Hogan's match, and commentary kind of putting over here that The Undertaker is basically following Hogan anywhere he goes, and that, that's, again, playing up the heated feud between these two over the past several months, dating back to, Survivor Series this Tuesday in Texas. Everything, the fallout that led to the vacated WWF Championship. So we're kind of playing this up. Highlights from a recent match from Hogan at this Minneapolis show. And yeah, The Undertaker trying to interfere, and we get kind of the pull apart, the officials kind of holding these two back from each other to really play up the tension moving forward here with the Hulk Hogan and The Undertaker. So 100 here for this segment. Hey, I mean, we got to get some stuff somewhere that brings up the rating. So, we're doing our best on this one. But this is not how we finish the show. We finish the show with a promo here, and it is Gene Okerlund with the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. And Okerlund asking Flair what he thinks about what he's just seen here from Hulk Hogan and The Undertaker. And Flair just says he doesn't care about whatever Hulk Hogan and The Undertaker are doing right now. He's only focused on one thing. And he says, Gene, everybody's been asking the question. Why? Why is the WWF Championship not up for grabs in the Royal Rumble? I'll tell you why. It's because Jack Tunney and everybody else in the WWF is trying to delay the inevitable. They know who the real world's champion is, and that is the Nature Boy Ric Flair. They don't want the Nature Boy getting anywhere close to the WWF Championship because they don't want to admit that I'm the best thing going today, and that is when Flair talks about, I guarantee you that I will win the 1992 Royal Rumble, and the dirtiest player in the game will do whatever it takes to get the victory and go to WrestleMania, where I will prove that not only Am I the real world champion? I'm the WWF champion. So, Ric Flair is delivering a message here guaranteeing that he will win the 1992 Royal Rumble. So, yeah, just kind of have Flair, pointing out all the heel stuff that Flair usually says and talking about how, and we did kind of tie that in. We also mentioned that, talking about how we're going to try something a little bit different about not just granting the WWF Championship to the winner of the Rumble. And so, yeah, like we're going a different direction as we mentioned last time. But kind of, again, I think there's an interesting idea out there that we're going to work with on that. But yeah, we're using that with Flair, kind of using that as motivation here. And the reason why he's saying the championship's not on the line is because, WWF wants to keep delaying the fact that he's going to be the next champion. So, yeah, Flair using it for some promo material here, and that is how we wrap up this edition of Superstars of Wrestling with a guarantee from Ric Flair that he will win the Royal Rumble 93 here for this one. So, we're going to finish the show. We get a 69, another poor rating. Nice rating, though, I suppose. We lose popularity in 11 regions. We gain popularity in 8. We still get the general feeling that WWF don't have enough interesting storylines going on. So this is one we are addressing, and we did that before this show. Actually, we added in a couple more storylines here because I have, I think, 4, and we're trying to tie all of them in. So the other one that's still active, I think, on the storylines-wise, is like the DiBiase IRS, natural disasters, Jimmy Hart, whatever, saga that's going on there. That one's like right out of 65, so you got to have the 5 at 65 to do that. We advanced 4 on this show that are way above 65, but my guess is either the Mountie and Brett one, even though it's got a 66, it may still be under 65 a little bit. And my guess is this one right here is also still under 65. So, yeah, that obviously hurt the rating. But like I said, guys, I think just bear with me here early on in the save because this is one where we are going in knowing that we're not going to get great ratings, but we are certainly making some tweaks. And I think for me, I'm like, let's just get to the Rumble, and then I know kind of how I want to proceed after that. That's this edition of Superstars of Wrestling. Let's see what we get to before we wrap up. All right, so that was Superstars of Wrestling. A lot of signings here. There's been some companies that are just on a tear. GWF signing a ton of people. Who else? Like, there's been a couple companies. P&W signing a lot of people. Like, there's just a lot of signings. Of course, early on here, so promotions just kind of loading up on talent. Let's see, we got some opinions here. Luke's got an opinion. The Earthquake is a star in the making. The Kid. It's just interesting to hear the Earthquake being called a kid, right? But could make us some serious money in the future. I agree. I got big plans for the Earthquake. So, yeah, I agree, Luke. I've got plans for Earthquake. Don't worry. Drug test fees, we certainly need those in this save. Tony Gurria, okay. Owen Hart is money. Strap a rocket to the kid. Well, there you go. The rocket for Owen Hart. So, interesting, Tony Gurria. I also agree with your opinion on that, about Owen Hart. Primetime Wrestling got a 0.04 TV rating. Superstars of Wrestling, 1.01. So, we know that it's affecting our size right now. We know we're losing popularity. But, again, we're gonna make some changes to try to correct some of these issues, and it will mean Superstars is going to evolve a little bit into kind of a different structure, but we'll talk more about that after the Royal Rumble. But for now, I will show you guys, I guess, here quickly. I can give you the results of Primetime Wrestling, although I wonder if, let's see, 1 second here. Okay, no, so it doesn't. Okay, so Primetime Wrestling, and give you a quick rundown of what happened on Primetime Wrestling. Owen Hart getting the win over Kato. The Berserker beat Coco Beware. We had an interview with Papa Shango. The Beverly Brothers beat Greg the Hammer Valentine, El Matador. Shawn Michaels, the Warlord, defeated Nikolai Volkov. Just an atrocious match. Hacksaw Jim Duggan promo here. Tatanka beat Bob Bradley. Big Boss Man promo. Haku and the Barbarian defeated Brian Costello and Chris Walker. Another atrocious match. The Mountie still trying to get his man here. Erwin R. Shyster, IRS beat Jim Powers in a bad match. Just bad matches across the board. This is just incredible. So, again, we 53 for the show rating for Primetime Wrestling. Had a little Jake interview, Ric Flair interview. So, yeah, we just, again, guys, I mean, the ratings will get better. That's the best way I can put it. You guys know this. I'm probably saying it too much. Like you know how this works. If you've played this kind of series before, in terms of like this era, you know how difficult it is kind of to try to replicate it exactly. But we're having fun with it. We're going to build our own stories, and the ratings are kind of, they're not all the way secondary, but they're kind of secondary. As you guys know how I do my saves. Like, the ratings are fine to have, but, because we're losing popularity now, they're more important. But yeah, I still just enjoy the storylines and all this kind of fun stuff. So, but for now, be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Hope you guys are enjoying the series so far. Hopefully some nostalgia. Yeah, we're building some really fun things, and I think the nostalgia will be real as we continue to move forward in this series. So appreciate you guys watching. As always, I said earlier, I love the great feedback. Keep it coming. Always enjoy the conversation. So check out everything else on the channel. Of course, we've got the WWE 2024, WWE 2021, TCW, and the C-Verse, all sorts of stuff you can check out on the channel if you would like. So again, guys, I appreciate you watching. And on the next episode of our WWF 1992 save, it will be Superstars of Wrestling, the Go Home Edition, before the Royal Rumble, as we get to January Week 3.